Have you ever felt like happiness just slipped away from your life? Like one day you woke up and realized you couldn't remember the last time you truly smiled from your heart? This is the story of a small village where people had forgotten how to be joyful. Everyone worked hard, everyone survived, but nobody seemed truly alive anymore. The children played quietly, the adults spoke in whispers, and even the birds seemed to sing softer songs. It was as if someone had turned down the brightness on life itself. In this village lived an old baker named Samuel. Every morning before sunrise, he would light his ovens and begin preparing bread for the day. But Samuel was different from everyone else. While the whole village walked around with heavy hearts, Samuel had something special. He had a secret that could change everything. But before I tell you what that secret was, let me share something important. Samuel wasn't always this way. Years ago, he was just like everyone else in the village. He had lost his wife, his bakery was failing, and he felt completely hopeless. He would wake up each day wondering why he should even bother getting out of bed. The weight of sadness had crushed his spirit, and he couldn't see any reason to continue. One particularly dark winter morning, Samuel sat in his cold bakery, staring at empty shelves. He had given up. No customers came anymore because his bread tasted bland and lifeless, just like he felt inside. He was ready to close the bakery forever and leave the village. But then something happened that changed his life completely. A young girl knocked on his door. She was maybe 7 years old, with torn clothes and bare feet despite the freezing weather. She asked if he had any leftover bread because she hadn't eaten in 2 days. Samuel looked at this child and saw something he had forgotten existed. In her eyes, despite her hunger and cold, there was still hope, still light. He gave her the last piece of stale bread he had, and when she smiled and thanked him, something inside Samuel's heart cracked open. For the first time in months, he felt warmth, not from his ovens, but from deep within his soul. That night, he made a decision that would transform not just his life, but the entire village. Samuel decided to discover the secret of true joy, not the temporary happiness that comes and goes, but the deep, lasting joy that can survive any storm. He began experimenting with his bread, but not just with ingredients. He started putting something else into every loaf, something invisible but powerful. The next morning, when people bought his bread and took their first bite, something magical happened. Mrs. Elena, who hadn't laughed in years, suddenly started giggling at the breakfast table. Mr. Thomas, who always complained about everything, found himself humming while he ate. Children who had been quiet and serious began playing with energy they hadn't felt before. Word spread quickly through the village. People started coming to Samuel's bakery not just for bread, but because they felt different there. They felt lighter, happier, more alive. Even the most heartbroken villagers would leave his shop with something they had lost, something they thought was gone forever. The village council became curious. They demanded to know what Samuel was putting in his bread. Was it some kind of magic ingredient? A special herb? A secret recipe passed down through generations? But Samuel would only smile and say, "The most powerful ingredient cannot be measured or bought. It can only be given freely." Days turned into weeks, and the transformation in the village became impossible to ignore. The baker's shop had become the heart of something beautiful. People who had been strangers for years started talking to each other. Neighbors began helping neighbors. The sound of laughter echoed through streets that had been silent for so long. But not everyone was pleased with these changes. The village doctor noticed that fewer people were coming to him with complaints of sadness and worry. The tavern owner saw his customers drinking less because they no longer needed to numb their pain. Some of the wealthier merchants felt uncomfortable seeing their workers smile and sing while they labored. These men formed a group and marched to Samuel's bakery one evening after closing time. They pounded on his door, demanding answers. "What are you doing to our people?" they shouted. "This isn't natural. People are supposed to struggle, to to work hard without all this nonsense about joy and happiness. Samuel opened his door and looked at these angry faces. He saw the same darkness in their eyes that he once carried in his own heart. Instead of arguing with them, he simply said, "Would you like to understand what I've learned? Come back tomorrow morning before sunrise, and I'll show you." The next morning, only the doctor arrived. He was skeptical, but curious enough to want answers. Samuel handed him an apron and said, "Today, you will help me bake." The doctor protested that he knew nothing about baking, but Samuel insisted. The bread is not the lesson. How we bake it is what matters. As they worked together in the pre-dawn darkness, Samuel began sharing his discovery. After that little girl knocked on my door, I realized something profound. I had been living my entire life waiting for joy to find me, waiting for circumstances to change, waiting for someone else to make me happy. But joy doesn't work that way. He kneaded the dough with gentle, careful movements. Joy is not something that happens to us. It's something we choose to create, even in the darkest moments. When I started putting gratitude into every loaf, when I began blessing each person who would eat this bread, when I decided to serve others despite my own pain, everything changed. The doctor understood that morning. Samuel's secret wasn't magic at all. It was the simple truth that when we choose to give love and kindness to others, even when our own hearts are broken, we discover something incredible. Joy multiplies when it's shared. It grows stronger when it's given away freely. From that day forward, the village became known for something special. Travelers would come from far and wide, not for Samuel's bread, but for the warmth they felt in every person they met. The old baker had taught them all that joy isn't found in perfect circumstances or easy days. True joy comes from choosing to be a light for others, especially when the world feels dark. So remember, when life feels heavy and happiness seems impossible to find, look around you. Find someone who needs what you can give, even if it's small, because sometimes the secret to finding our own joy is helping someone else discover theirs.